Hey, how you doing? How are you doing? Yeah, I've got a lot of Fujifilm medium format GF lenses here. There's a couple that I didn't bring out that I also happen to have. And the reason why I didn't bring them out is because I generally don't recommend them. Even though I love macro photography, best macro lens in the world, by the way, and I own a lot of them, is the 80mm 2.8 macro for the Fujifilm X mount. Not a fan of the 63. What's wrong with it? Nothing. It's just like there's nothing wrong with plain bread and a banana. It will keep you alive. I'm actually just not a fan of the 63. There are a lot of excellent lenses out there. Fujifilm makes really excellent lenses. But then the point comes at which, if you actually own all of the lenses, that you start asking yourself, compared to what? And this is actually despite what it is you may want to focus on, macro, sports, action, or whatever with Fujifilm lenses, but it's not an exemplary, impressive lens, the 63. The 120 macro, basically the exact same reasons. By the way, my free book below, I actually rate all the Fujifilm lenses. I own all of them. My 50mm is on the way, the 50mm pancake. I had that for borrow for over a month, so I'm extremely familiar with it even though I don't own it. Also a very impressive lens. It's very compact. It's realistically that much more compact than, say, the 45mm. Yeah, but I mean, this is the best Fujifilm GF lens out there. Let me actually make, not my subjective conclusions, but actually make some objective declarations depending on what it is that you shoot, based upon what I know about these lenses, and I have all of them. Here's the 250mm. And is this the 32-64? Yeah, here we go, the 32-64, which is really a lens everybody should own. Like if someone was like, all I can afford right now is a GFX camera and one lens. I need one lens until I can afford another one to it's going to get me by for doing most of the things I want to do. This is that lens, the 32-64. It actually has, and this is not just my position, countless other people have said this, many prime-like characteristics. And this is the case actually of a lot of medium format, wherein some of the very exemplar zooms are so nice. It's like you shot it with a prime. That's the 32-64, which is basically a 24 to 50mm equivalent field of view. By the way, you take any of these lenses and the crop factor for a full frame equivalent is times 0.78. So if you want to figure out what it is, just take the focal of any of these GFX lenses and multiply it times 0.78, i.e. 0.78. I actually rated the 32-64 extremely high. I gave it a 9 out of 10 on overall and a 10 out of 10 on value. My favorite lens in the entire world is the 45mm 2.8. It is literally a perfect prime. The image fidelity, the bokeh, absolutely every characteristic of it is exemplar. It's exquisite. It's small, compact, lightweight. It is a 35mm equivalent, and something that it was a survey done by somebody, I forget who, they asked some of the world's most famous photographers, if you could have just one lens glued permanently to your favorite camera for the rest of your life, what would it be? It would be a 35mm equivalent lens, a Leica, Summicron, whatever, for a 35mm lens of some sort. And this is that 35mm field of view. Absolutely an excellent, unbelievable lens. My favorite of all time. 10 out of 10 across the board. Nothing finer. Like I said, if you're just got a Fujifilm GFX system and you can only afford one lens, it would definitely be the 32-64. This is the 23. I actually took this up to New York with me recently. I only brought two lenses, actually. I should have brought my favorite, the 45, but I needed some close-in wide stuff, so I brought the 23 and I brought the 32-64. This is an 18mm field of view equivalent. This is a 23mm, perfect for architecture, landscape, or indoors. It actually, despite its size, is an extremely heavy lens. It's also very expensive, but compared to what? No, not that expensive compared to many other fine, high-quality medium format lenses. That's the 23mm f4. There is one more lens coming out. There's currently 9 Fujifilm GF lenses. The only one that I don't have currently is the 50mm Pancake 3.5, but I've used it extensively. And the other one is the 40 millimeter to 100. That's due out the first part of 2020, which will be the supplemental to this baby, which is the 100 to 200. This is essentially a short version of a 70 to 200. It does come with a tripod collar, but I took it off and I put it back in the box. This lens is actually very lightweight. It's extremely inexpensive. And people would think, well, you know, the bokeh couldn't be that great out of this lens. I mean, it's not a fast lens. And no, it's not, but people keep forgetting that this is a medium format. This is a 5.6 lens, very lightweight. Absolutely love it. So incredibly useful. This is, honestly, if, you know, regardless of what you're shooting, I would actually strongly suggest you either consider this as a second lens after the 32 to 64. I know you want a prime, and of course one of the primary reasons of owning a medium format camera is obviously to have a really, really awesome prime. The first awesome prime, of course, I would recommend would be the 45. It's like, yeah, but I already have that covered on the 32 to 64, and that, of course, is a fair question. Like, if you do a lot of portraiture, yes, then the second lens after the 32 to 64, since you could only afford the camera and one lens, would be this, the 110 millimeter f2. This is an 85 millimeter f1.4 equivalent. Specifically, it's 86 millimeter 1.5. Incredible bokeh, sharp as hell. It is pretty darn heavy. It's a heavy, huge lens. This is the 110 millimeter f2 Fujifilm. So if you do a lot of portraiture, this would be my second lens purchase after the 32 to 64. If you really don't do any portraiture and you're wanting to do more street and you know, spontaneous stuff, then absolutely you should be getting the 100 to 200 millimeter 5.6. Very lightweight. There's no problem with this dangling off the front of your GFX 50R, 50S, or 100S. Not a problem at all. It doesn't need the tripod collar. I know Fujifilm included it. I mean, it's just in the way, so I removed it. Totally unnecessary for this lens. Absolutely love it. This is actually my second favorite Fujifilm lens. I gave it a 10 out of 10 across the board, which seems impossible, right? Even more so than that of the 110 millimeter. Yeah, because it is so useful. The range that you get, the fact also too, importantly, and I did a review on this lens, the optical image stabilization on this is amazing. Oh, very, very nice. As far as taking some, you don't have IBIS on the 50S and 50R camera. Doing some low light, slow shutter speed shots, not a problem with the 100 to 2. This lens really is very, very dear to my heart. I love the hell out of this lens, more than you'll ever know. So, then I thought I had, yeah, the other two that I didn't bring out here. 3, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there we go. I was doing some calculation in my head. Last but not least, perfect for distant portraiture, perfect for landscape, far-off landscape, stuff that you actually can't reach, because you just can't reach it. This one does need a tripod collar. This is the 250 millimeter f4 OIS. Nowhere near as good OIS as on the 100 to 200. I love the forward autofocus, the AF on buttons. These are actually settable, but just everybody uses these as AF on buttons. It's not really that heavy. There's a lot of empty space inside of this lens, but this is a 250 millimeter f4. This is essentially equivalent to like the Wasm portrait lens for Nikon, which is 180 millimeter 2.8. This is the, like I said, the 180 millimeter equivalent at roughly 2.8 equivalent. Roughly right at 180 2.8 on this baby. Perfect for landscape, far-off landscape. Perfect for documentary. Perfect for portraiture. Yes. Step back, get that awesome image compression, you know, behind whoever it is or whatever it is that you're shooting. Love this lens. Absolutely love it. It's not that heavy. It looks really heavy, but it's not. OIS, as I already said. But that's the lens lineup, and of course the 40 to 100 millimeter coming out next year. Really, if I could only have 3 lenses for my GFX cameras, it would be the 32 to 64, the 45 millimeter, unquestionably. I use this lens all the time. I even flocked the inside of the lens hood. I love this lens a lot. So 32 64, the 45 millimeter, and the, man, I love this lens so much. the 100 to 200 millimeter 5.6. See what creeps people out is like, oh, you know, I got an expensive medium format camera. I'm not going to buy a 5.6 lens. No, you're making a mistake. You really are. If you do a bunch of architecture or interiors, obviously the 23 millimeter f4. This is the lens that I've taken to Shaker Village more than a few times to take sweeping shots and of the old Shaker architecture. And of course, you're doing a lot of portraiture, then definitely, unquestionably, obviously so, the 110 millimeter f2. But to me, then it's just as pure subjectivity. Not you. I'm not you, and you're not me, obviously. Thank God, right? These are my second tier GFX lenses, and these are, I mean, I do everything. I'm so happy with just these lenses. And if I wanted to narrow it down even more, I only really need two, the 45 millimeter and the 110 millimeter, excuse me, the, the 100 to 200 millimeter f5.6. These are the only two lenses I really need. The pancake lens is extremely nice. It's not insanely sharp, but that's an issue of all pancake lenses. The bokeh is not super wonderful, but I mean it's meant to be and it does autofocus really fast. So I've done a full review on the pancake, the 50 millimeter f3.5 Fujifilm lens, and it is really cheap. I accurately predicted it would be $1,000, and that was dead smack on. But yeah, if you just have the camera and you can only afford one lens, like I can only afford the camera and one lens, this is it. Get the 32 to 64. This is the do-it-all lens. It's actually really good for portraiture. It's really good for everything. At 24 to 50 millimeter full-frame equivalent field of view, it's perfect for almost everything. And of course, since it's medium format, you can crop the piss out of it. Yeah? I think I made that abundantly clear. I hope you like these videos, and I gave you a basic or broader, at least intelligent insight. People like recommend stuff. It's like, well, you have all the lenses. I mean, what's your basis of comparison? I have all the lenses except for the 50, but I've used the 50 for over a month, so. And that one's coming. I love my, I grew up on medium format. I love medium format to death. And by the way, don't forget to download my free book. It's in the link below. Fujifilm Tricks and Tips. I'm working on the 3rd edition. This is edition number 2.1 right now. Fujifilm camera helpful tips and tricks. It's 180 pages long, and it's chock full of tons and tons of information. I'll tell you what, you know, I'm not selling anything, okay? Not selling anything. But I hope I could be of some help on this. And I'm still waiting on my GFX 100 camera. I've had that camera now for borrow for nearly 2 months on 2 different borrows, but I'm still waiting to get mine. There is a long line of people that are waiting to get their GFX 100s, and I am actually one of those people also. I actually got a piece of fuzz underneath my filter. I'll have to take my filter off and blow that off. I don't know how that got in there. I'll take care of that later. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.